All right, back on the BCast B-side here Wednesday afternoon, live from the studio in Pittsburgh. And we're not only going to play sections of this CNN report, we're going to tell you about the things they left out. Like, they use some facts and figures.
Okay.
Would you like to know where they got those facts and figures?
It's always helpful. But I don't really think we're supposed to ask that question.
Right.
I think facts were very, 2008.
Yes.
No, they weren't. Maybe 2007. Or at least up until the Bush administration left office, people were much more conservative.
And so what have we learned from CNN so far this week? Well, the first day we learned, because the main expert quoted in the first story on Monday was that people listen to Rush Limbaugh because they feel voiceless and they want to feel powerful. And Rush Limbaugh is the bully on the playground. And rather than being a victim of the bully, they want to stand with the bully so they get power by proxy. And then yesterday's was a little milder, but
I hope people aren't lemmings.
It's and I didn't see where they really advanced the story that much yesterday, although they introduced more liberal voices into it. Some of the same characters are back today: Randy Rhoads and the guy in Harrisburg. Well, you'll see him pop up. Duggan. I think I didn't want to confuse him with who's the people with all the 18 babies.
Duggars.
The Duggars, yeah. I don't think that's
He's
them.
not the 19th Duggar.
Yeah, hold on.
Yeah.
Bob Durgan.
Okay.
There we go, Bob Durgan.
Yeah, slight difference.
Yeah. So here today the question becomes fairness doctrine, and listen for the facts and figures because that's what we're going to talk about.
In 1987, the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, rescinded something called the Fairness Doctrine. It required broadcast companies to present both sides of a controversial issue. Well, since the Fairness Doctrine went away and was repealed, conservative talk boomed on AM radio, and liberal talk faded. It's unlikely the Fairness Doctrine will return, but there is something else many liberal talkers are fighting for: localism.
The right wing's going crazy.
Randy Rhoads is a progressive political talker.
They're literally at war with a feeling, not a tactic, a feeling.
On the air in Washington, D.C., where 93% of voters voted Obama. Yet the majority of political talk on AM radio is conservative.
The president is presiding over economic failure.
They just don't want to fight.
He owned that crowd.
If you know that you live in a town where everybody votes Democratic and all you have on your radio is conservative talk, then you can see how localism isn't part of the equation in media programming.
Localism. Simply put, it means radio stations would be forced to carry more local programming that appeals to local audiences. Right now, big broadcasting companies like Clear Channel Communications, CBS, and others own hundreds of radio stations across the country. And much of what they broadcast aren't shows with local personalities, but syndicated shows featuring Rush Limbaugh.
Giant economic rebound.
And Sean Hannity.
Well, he's going to rise a little faster than he ever dreamed.
Talkers Rhoads says do not reflect D.C.
Diversity always gets a better result than just this one steady, lockstep, repetition of same talking points over and over.
In November, the FCC will hold a media workshop, as is required every 4 years. Among the topics, the state of the current media marketplace.
Men and women are dying over there. And
Bob Durgan, a conservative talker in Pennsylvania, is wary of localism.
They want to program the radio station. They want to tell the people what they're going to hear. They don't want the people hearing what they want to hear. They want the people to hear what they want the people to hear. And they want people to hear more liberal radio, more diversity.
Durgan says liberals want it all, even though they have plenty now, not only on the radio and cable TV,
Tonight's worst persons in the world,
but on commercial TV and in Hollywood.
Congressman Doolittle, Michael Moore.
Camille Paglia, a social critic and Obama supporter.
I find the motivation for this, all this talk about the local show, is actually covert. It's actually a way to try to ambush right-wing radio, which has indeed risen up as a powerful force in response, to the shutdown of conservative viewpoints coming from the major media.
Rhoads disagrees. She says millions of Americans get their political talk from AM radio, 91% of which is conservative.
I do want to be on their stations. I want a crack at their audience, and let me live and die by the success or failure. But I don't have that access.
The new federal communications chief is a fan of diversity in media ownership, and some of his hires have upset conservative radio talkers who feel the Obama administration is out to shut them down, even though Mr. Obama has pledged not to reinstate the Fairness Doctrine or anything that resembles it. I asked Michael Harrison from Talkers Magazine if this idea of localism will be taken seriously by the FCC. He says, yes, it will be, but the issue is so politically charged right now, he'd be stunned if the FCC went forward with it in any serious way.
There you go. Okay, well.
Yeah. Except, what have we learned? Just because something's not called the Fairness Doctrine doesn't mean it might not have the same effect as the Fairness Doctrine. And what is, Lloyd doing over at the FCC with the, diversity, panel to help figure out how to diversify media ownership and all of those things? You don't have to have an official, congressional review anymore of these people. So you put somebody in and they circumvent all of that. They don't have to report to Congress. They don't have to let them know how much money they're spending or what they're doing. And could have the same disastrous effects, if not worse, because all of it's being done in such a secretive manner. So keep your eye on the ball.
Well, at least we got Camille Paglia in there, and she's like she in a way becomes the perfect analyst in there because she's a liberal, an Obama supporter, but she loves talk radio, right? And we've played clips of her on various shows. We've invited her to be on the show twice, never heard back. Come on, Camille, we're nice, we're friendly. She loves Drudge. Drudge loves her, and so she's fascinating. So because you don't want it to be just the two competing talk show hosts, the conservative and the liberal. So I was okay with that. I was okay that they had Camille Paglia. The interesting thing is that over there at Newsbusters, they broke this out a little bit, and they pointed out that the facts in there to support this localism theory, and I'll give you my thoughts on that here in a second, that 91% of talk radio is apparently conservative, right? And that, let's see, near the end of a report, which aired at the bottom of the 7 a.m. Eastern hour, which is prime time in the morning, you had the ultra-left talker Randy Rhodes. All three clips in favor of localism came from Rhodes, who says millions of Americans get their political talk from AM radio, 91% of which is conservative. Costello didn't cite the source of the figure, which comes from a 2007 report by two liberal organizations. And are you ready for the Center for American Progress, home of Van Jones, and Free Press, which is the one that Glenn Beck's been talking about that's run by avowed Marxist. And the report was co-authored by Mark Lloyd, who is now the FCC's chief diversity officer. The correspondent touted the figure as well during a report on Monday's American Morning, where she claimed it came from Talkers Magazine. But the figure itself is misleading because, as the Media Research Center's Culture and Media Institute pointed out, the CAP report ignored non-commercial radio, right? Such as NPR and other public radio networks. Earlier in the segment, Costello put the localism issue in the context of the past Fairness Doctrine, and before playing the first bite from Rhodes, acknowledged that it's unlikely the Fairness Doctrine will return, but there is something else many liberal talkers are fighting for, localism. She also downplayed talk show hosts' leftism, merely labeling her as a progressive political talker.